On the night of April 28, 1881, the small frontier town of Lincoln, New Mexico, was unusually quiet. Dust drifted slowly across the empty street. A lantern swayed gently outside a wooden storefront. Somewhere in the distance, a horse shifted its weight in the darkness. It looked like any other night on the frontier, but inside the Lincoln County Jail, something very different was about to happen. Inside one of the cells sat a young outlaw whose name was already spreading across the American West. Billy the Kid. He was only 21 years old. And by sunrise the next morning, he was supposed to die. Outside his cell stood two armed deputies. Every door was locked. Every window was barred. There was no escape. At least, that was what everyone believed. But before the night was over, the entire town would wake to a shocking discovery. Two deputies dead, the jail doors open, and Billy the Kid gone. Vanished into the darkness. How did a condemned outlaw escape from a guarded jail? How did two armed deputies end up dead? And how did the most famous fugitive in the American frontier disappear without a trace? To understand that night, we need to understand the man. By the time Billy the Kid turned 21, he had already become one of the most talked about men in the territory. Some called him a ruthless killer. Others believed he was simply a young man trying to survive in one of the most violent regions in America. The truth was somewhere in between. The New Mexico Territory in the late 1870s was a rough and dangerous place. Law was thin. Justice was often decided by whoever drew their gun first. And powerful ranchers fought constantly for land, cattle, and control. Billy grew up in this world. Fast. Too fast. Born Henry McCarty, he later adopted the name William Bonney. But across the frontier he became known by a different name. Billy the Kid. Billy's reputation exploded during one of the most violent conflicts in the region. The Lincoln County War. Two powerful factions were fighting for control of the local cattle and trade business. What started as a political dispute quickly turned into open warfare. Gunfights broke out in dusty streets. Ambushes took place along lonely desert trails. Men disappeared into the mountains and were never seen again. Billy the Kid joined one side of the conflict, and during the chaos of the war, his reputation grew. Stories spread of his speed with a revolver, of his ability to escape danger, and of the growing number of enemies who wanted him dead. When the war finally ended, Billy the Kid had become a legend, but he had also become a wanted man. The man tasked with stopping him was Sheriff Pat Garrett. Garrett knew the territory well. He understood the outlaw world, and he was determined to bring Billy the Kid to justice. For months, Garrett tracked Billy across the frontier, through desert valleys, across isolated ranches, into remote settlements where the law rarely reached. Billy seemed impossible to catch, until one winter night in December 1880. That night, the hunt finally ended. Garrett surprised Billy and several companions inside a building at Fort Sumner. Shots were fired, but when the smoke cleared, Billy the Kid was under arrest. Billy was taken to stand trial. The courtroom was packed with spectators. People had traveled long distances just to see the famous outlaw in person. The trial moved quickly. Witnesses spoke. Evidence was presented. And the verdict was clear. Billy the Kid was guilty of murder. The sentence was death by hanging. Execution day was scheduled for May 13th, 1881. Until then, Billy would remain imprisoned in Lincoln County. Under constant guard, the Lincoln County Jail was considered secure. 2 deputies watched Billy at all times. One of them was James Bell. The other was Bob Olinger. Olinger openly despised the young outlaw. He carried a double-barreled shotgun and frequently mocked Billy from outside the cell. He enjoyed reminding the prisoner of something. The rope was waiting. But Billy the Kid had no intention of dying on a gallows. On April 28th, an opportunity appeared. Deputy Olinger left the jail to eat lunch across the street. Deputy Bell remained alone with the prisoner. The building grew quiet. Outside, the town continued its normal afternoon routine. No one suspected what was about to happen. Exactly how Billy managed to free himself remains one of the great mysteries of the Wild West. But moments later, a gunshot shattered the silence. Deputy Bell staggered, then collapsed onto the dusty ground. Billy the Kid now had a weapon, but the escape was far from finished. Because Bob Olinger was still alive, and he was already running back toward the jail. Olinger rushed toward the building, hearing the commotion. Billy the Kid had already climbed to the upper floor. When Olinger stepped into the street below, Billy appeared on the balcony above him, holding Olinger's own shotgun. Witnesses later said Billy looked calm. Some even claimed he smiled. Then he fired. The blast echoed across the street. Olinger collapsed instantly. In just a few minutes, both guards were dead. And Billy the Kid was free. Billy wasted no time. He broke the shackles attached to his legs, collected ammunition, found a horse, and rode out of Lincoln. By the time anyone organized a pursuit, Billy the Kid was already gone. News of the escape spread quickly across the frontier. A condemned outlaw had escaped a guarded jail, killed 2 deputies, and vanished into the wilderness. For many people across the American West, the story sounded unbelievable, but it was true. Billy the Kid had done the impossible. And in doing so, he became something more than just an outlaw. He became a legend of the Wild West. But the story was not finished, because somewhere out there, Sheriff Pat Garrett was still hunting. And the American frontier was not big enough for both of them.
Subscribe to the American Vault. Turn on the notifications. Because in a world of shadows, the only thing more dangerous than the truth is not knowing it at all. See you in the next file.